In today's culture, children are growing up surrounded by so much noise coming from all sides. Beyond knowing about God and His biblical truth, children also need to learn how to live and be in relationship with Him. Many parents want their children to become followers of Jesus, but believe it's the sole responsibility of the children's ministry to make that happen. We know that home is the forefront of influence for a child's life. Just think about how much time a parent spends with their child compared to that of the church. A parent has approximately 3,000 hours a year of influence, while the church has about 40 hours. The children's ministry plays an important role, but it's definitely not the leading role. So learning to live out a relationship with God must start with the parents as the lead and the church as support. The question then is, how do we support the parents in this most important job? This may depend on the demographic of your ministry family and where you are located. Take a poll to get valuable information from them directly. It'll help if you bunch families together, like combining families with toddlers or parents with fifth graders. In these polls, ask questions like, how can I support you? And are there any specific topics in parenting or discipleship that you'd like to learn about? It's best to get face-to-face feedback. Otherwise, the survey may get ignored in favor of more pressing issues and never find its way back to you. In most Salvation Army Corps, many of the parents do not come to church. We have to find new creative ways to reach out to these parents and let them know that we are on their team. As a youth leader, I have found that it is essential that parents know who is leading their children. This can happen when parents come to the Corps for a VBS graduation, junior soldier enrollment, or other special events. Make home visits. Don't just rely on them to show up. Parents are always willing to talk about their kids. You can stop by and just let them know who you are and how their child is doing. Gather cell phone numbers and send out periodic texts to parents to update them on how their kid is doing. If the child is involved in sports or band at school, go to their school events. Often the parents will also be present. This is a great informal way to have conversations outside of the church building, and these are simple steps that help form a bond between the Corps and the community. When you contact a parent outside of a disciplinary setting, you begin to build trust between yourself and the parent. They know you are someone who they can call to find out what is going on with their child. If your families are mostly new Christians, then maybe your poll can include a list of practices or disciplines, and you can have the parents put a check next to all of the topics they're interested in learning. Take this completed list to your Corps officer and ask them to point you to a few resources. Consider having short-term book clubs where you can discuss relevant readings, with meeting times scheduled bi-weekly or monthly. This way, you don't have to be the expert, but you can contribute by envisioning and equipping parents to connect with each other in the community. Be their cheerleader and a consistent source of encouragement, because parenting is hard. Totally worth it, but hard nonetheless. Dr. Kara Powell, author and executive director of Fuller Youth Institute and StickyFaith.org, talks about the value of having 5 adults speaking into the life of each child. I do my best to remind parents that this kind of intimacy and relationship takes time to build, and the sooner they engage, the better. For your child to have 5 adults know them well enough to have influence in their life means you have to know and trust them too. Whether it be grandparents, relatives, friends, coaches, or pastors, Dr. Powell's extensive research has shown a direct correlation to the kids that have these adult relationships and their faith lasting beyond high school. As you juggle between how best to serve the child, volunteer, and parents, I propose having the parents be volunteers. They may not have very much time, but they are personally invested in the ministry, and that is a big win. You'll have to figure out a healthy balance for volunteer parents to both serve and attend church services. But in my opinion, that's a great problem to have. I suggest having the older kids serve the younger kids. Not only is it empowering and impactful in the formation of older children, but they also serve as great role models for the little ones. If you feel like you lack the resources you need, engaging both parents and older students is a great way to tap into incredible talent for free. Some of the best stage set designs I've ever seen were created by middle school students. I also ran VBS for 4 years where we saw exponential growth every year. We began the first year with 30 kids, and by the 4th year, we were over 150 kids. My entire VBS staff was high school students. I also visited a church in Atlanta that had the coolest hangout room intended for kids of volunteer parents. If your Corps has programs for adults with nothing going on for the kids, maybe you can try creating a hangout space where the kids are free to just hang out. They had a ton of different toys, electronics, art supplies, and snacks out for the kids. And let's face it, in the eyes of a child, high school students are way more fun to hang out with than adults. How do you help a family in crisis? Every family will experience crisis at some level. In the Salvation Army, we are working in communities where families are often in the midst of crisis. If we're doing this ministry thing right, then we're going to know about it. As a church, we have the privilege of supporting people during times like this, so know the resources available at your core, as well as other local ministries. Partner with these ministries. Don't go through this alone. Jesus gave us a picture of what to do when a crisis happens. Stay present. In John 11, we get to see Jesus weeping with the community that came together over Lazarus' death. He knew he would raise him up again, but he remained present with the people, which is the point. I'm sure there are many watching this now who are experts in psychological or medical fields that have had extensive training in how to care for a family in crisis, and we're so grateful that we get to serve in a children's ministry with you. For those of us that don't have that, we can still do what Jesus did and be present. We are all integral parts of our community. We must be prepared for things we hope and pray we'll never have to put into practice. If we can learn to support the parents of the children in our ministry, those who come to the core and those who do not, we will be strengthening our community and offering a better foundation for the kids in our care.